Good afternoon and welcome to Black Press Live. Today we have a very special conversation planned with Mr. Paris Dennard, the Senior Communications Advisor for Black Media Affairs at the Republican National Committee. Paris, welcome to Black Press Live. Thank you so much for taking out the time out of your busy schedule.
Well, Stacey, I'm just trying to figure out why it took so long to get me on. I mean, I've been waiting. I saw all the great people you all had on the program, and I said, when am I coming on? So I am greatly appreciative of the fact that you all gave me this opportunity to talk. I really do appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it, and you know, Paris, there's a lot of things happening in the country, has been happening, and I think one of the first things that we have to address is the support that first of all, you're obviously a Republican, but the support of this of the Republicans and the administration from an African American, and this with the backdrop of many African Americans really believe that this administration, at the very least, has failed them.
Well, first, let me say, Stacey, I value the Black press, and I believe that the best way to get news to the Black community is from the Black press. And I've said multiple times, when I was growing up, my grandparents, my granny and my papa, they got two papers to the house, the Arizona Republic, and the second one was the Arizona Informant, which is still in print, when Dr. Clovis Campbell was the original person there. And so I grew up reading the Arizona Informant. And so I know that when it comes to perception and information and how things are received, you've got to go where people are watching, reading, viewing. And so one of the things that I appreciate about BlackPressUSA and the NNPA, and under the leadership of obviously Dr. Ben Chavis, who I've known for many years and worked with for many years, is the fact that you all have been willing to take information, op-eds, articles, interviews from Black Republicans like myself and those working at the Republican National Committee, the Trump campaign, and the Trump administration, because I truly believe that getting the information to our community is critically important. So when you look at the issue of many in our community feeling like the Trump administration has not been a champion for them, I think it's because I have to do a better job of communicating that all of the things that the Trump administration is doing. Because when I look at the facts show that President Trump and the entire administration has really made the Black community a priority in the sense of looking at support for historically Black colleges and universities, advocating for school choice, obviously the impact of the criminal justice reform bill, the First Step Act was tremendous, opportunity zones, and the things that have been done during the COVID-19 global pandemic to directly impact the Black community in a major way, such as the recent announcement of HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, partnering with Morehouse Medical School in the tune of $40 million to really focus on underserved communities of color with COVID-19 and that new initiative. And so what I believe is that there are many things that the administration is doing. It's just that sometimes the filter is blocked, and quite frankly, our community just doesn't get the information, doesn't get the facts. And that's why I'm here at the RNC, and we're working so desperately hard to get the information out.
So let's unpack that, Paris. And like you said, it's important to stick with the facts. So let's start with the unemployment, right? African American unemployment in particular, since we are the Black press. It did reach a low last year, right? But much of that progress came during the Obama administration, right? Household median income was higher for Blacks prior to President Trump taking office. So, for instance, numbers say that the unemployment rate declined last month for white workers, 12.4% from 14.2% in April, and Latinos 17.6% from 18.9%, but jobless rates actually rose slightly for African American workers to 16.8% from 16.7%. So we have that as fact, right? We see the unemployment rate continues to be a problem in the African American community.
Well, I will just say that the unemployment rate under the Trump administration was at historic lows, and that is a fact. The policies that President Trump has put in place in this inclusive economy has made sure that the economy, that the unemployment rate for the Black community remained on a downward incline, which is important. So we know that when you have a new administration that comes in, there's new philosophies, there's new plans, there's new policies. And so the facts could have been that under the Trump administration, Black unemployment was at record highs. Black unemployment continued to increase in a substantial way every single year if the policies were in place that did that. But the facts are that because of the policies, we saw that unemployment rate continue to go down and have historic lows. That's a good thing. You mentioned, Stacey, the recent May jobs numbers in the jobs report. And I think it's important for us to unpack that a little bit. When you have COVID-19 and the economy being literally turned off, and that disproportionately disproportionately impacted the Black community, especially Black small business owners, the expectation from pollsters and policy analysts was that the unemployment rate was going to be a lot higher. What we did see is, I believe, because of the strong foundation that we had before COVID-19 hit and the economy had to be turned off, that Black unemployment remained relatively stable in terms of, like you said, it increased by 0.1%. Now, it could have increased, and many people would have thought it would have increased by double that, 3 times as much, 100 times as much, but it didn't. And we also saw over 200,000 jobs created in the Black community. So I do believe that the policies, while more can be done, of course, is that anything to celebrate in terms of any unemployment? No, but the fact that the economy maintained itself in a way that it allowed for the increase to be very, very minuscule, almost to the point of it being insignificant by that 0.1%.
Yeah, and again, we're talking with Paris Dennard of the Republican National Committee. Paris, we're talking about the unemployment, and just another point to that. Sure. More broadly, right? There were multiple signs before the pandemic that the racial wealth gap had been worsening. The racial wealth gap continues to be that, just that, a major gap. Again, it doesn't necessarily jive with the president or this administration doing well for Black people.
I think historic low unemployment for the Black community is a good thing. I have said multiple times, and I think everyone in the administration understands that we really need to have more. There's more work to be done. That's the truth. Right. And we saw even under the Obama administration, that gap was not eliminated because more work needed to be done. And so I think that when you have policies in place and people in place in the administration, like David Byrd, who's the recent appointee to be the National Director for Minority Business Development Agency, to really find ways, and they just put out $10 million worth of grants to a lot of organizations, find ways to narrow that gap. Let's have public-private partnerships. I am encouraged at the fact that when COVID-19 hit, advisors to the president, Ivanka Trump, called Robert F. Smith and said, how can you help us make sure that the Black small businesses are not left out and hurt? And Robert Smith went to work with the administration and many others, such as, the National Urban League. I know went to work with the administration. And I certainly know John Hope Bryant and his organization went to work with the administration to find more ways to make sure that during COVID-19, we were trying to be as responsive and help as many as we can through PPP and other things of that nature. And that's why you see the Robert A. through Vista Partners and the partnership with Magic Johnson, billions going out to get that money directly to minority-owned businesses. So I think it's a public-private partnership that's going to make this thing better. And I quite frankly believe that while more work can be done, you have an administration who is willing to first listen and secondly, willing to act to make sure that that comes to fruition.
In Paris, Democrats enjoy almost universal support of African Americans. You said that a key aspect of your role is increasing Black engagement, and we assume affiliation with the Republican Party. Explain why you believe that the Republican Party is a more viable option.
So, you know, I'm out talking to the community a lot in these events that we have online and in person. One of the first ones we did was in North Philadelphia at a Baptist church on a Thursday night, and a lot of the people that were there said, "I had never heard of this information that you're putting out. I did not know the president did half of the things, let alone any of the things that you talked about." And my pitch has always been, don't take my word for it. Go and do the research for yourself. Find the truth, get the facts. I'm not encouraging every Black person to be a Republican. That's not my goal. My goal is to give our community the facts and the information about what this president is doing, and hoping that they will give the president a first look and the Republican Party a second look or a first look, so that they can make the best decision for themselves, their family, and their communities. I believe once we as a community examine the facts and look at the records, especially now between the two candidates on the Republicans and the Democrat side, being President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, that the conclusion they will come to is my vote should go towards Donald Trump, not because he is a Republican, not because he is the president, but because looking at both of those records, his policies will make my life better. And when you look at, my last point is, for generations, we've looked at a lot of these urban communities that have been under the leadership of Democrats in the local level, meaning Democrat mayors or Democrat governors. And I believe that the statistics show a lot of failure. When you look at the quality of public schools, when you look at the condition of the roads, when you look at the crime and the violence, and quite frankly, the deaths, that's under Democrat control. And so I would just say, if your life if you're still not satisfied with the condition of your city, and you have been under Democrat leadership for your lifetime, it might be time to give us another vantage point, another look at the other side to say, is there something better for me and my family, my community? And I hope that you stay a Democrat, but vote your interest. And I believe that they will vote for Donald Trump and the Republican candidates.
So Paris, so the Center for American Progress, 1 year into the president's, Trump's presidencies, listed 52 weeks of his presidency, and they listed a harm done to African Americans for every one of those 52 weeks. And one of the topics was education. And it mentioned that the president had asked Congress to eliminate the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program, which provides high quality after school program to 1.1 million low income students of color. Another, Betsy DeVos, she advocated for a private school voucher system that would strip funding from public schools and would reinforce school segregation. And I'll give you one more and let you respond. The Education Department considered and have scrapped the Obama era federal guidance designed to ensure school discipline policies that do not discriminate against students of color and those with disabilities. And we know that the students who are being expelled, students who are being suspended are overwhelmingly African American students and those with disabilities.
Yeah, so I'm not, I don't frequent the Center for American Progress's website on a regular basis, if you can imagine. So I'm not really familiar with the things that you were citing, because this is my first time hearing them. But what I will say is that if you do have further questions, I would direct them to the Department of Education. But I do know that Betsy DeVos has been a champion for school choice. And school choice is something that is very, very important. The overwhelming majority of Black Americans, the overwhelming majority of Republicans and Democrats all agree with the issue of school choice. When you look at the gubernatorial races in Florida with DeSantis and Gilliam, and in Georgia with Abrams and Kemp, and many observers and pollsters will tell you that the reason why the Republicans won in both of those against the two rather liberal Black Democrat candidates was on the issue of school choice, because the Republicans were in favor of it and supported it, and the Black Democrats were against it. And more Black Americans turned out to vote on the issue of school choice. And I think that's something that the administration, I know, has championed. On the issue of charter schools, we can have that debate. There are many organizations, many HBCUs, and organizations like the 100 Black Men of America who run charter schools. And so we can have a healthy, robust conversation on the role of our public education system and the role of school teachers unions, and how they seem to be more in support of keeping bad teachers in place rather than doing the necessary reforms to make it better for students. And so I think that on the whole, when you look at what this administration has done on education and on elementary education, and especially with HBCUs, the record is unmatched in terms of the dedication, the finances, and the resources, and the advocacy for both school choice, vouchers, which are important, the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, which has been wildly successful, as well as the support for historically Black colleges and universities, in so much as looking at the Future Act, which, as you know, gave permanent funding for HBCUs for Title III Part F for 10 years, which had never been done before. And that was, yes, through Congress, but that was through the heavy impact and influence of the administration working behind the scenes to make sure that they knew that this was something that the president would sign, this was something that the president wanted, and it was a priority to him.
Paris, are you saying also that the president has done all he could to make life better for African Americans?
What I'm saying is the president has done an excellent job, and I think there's more that can be done. That's why I want him to have 4 more years. I don't think anybody, if you look at the plight of our community under any administration, you can go back to 8 years we were under President Obama, and you look at the statistics there. More could have been done. And I think when you look at under President Trump, while it has been very significant, while it has been very impressive, while he has really gone out of his way to do some really bold things for the community, yes, more can be done. And that's why I believe he needs 4 more years to continue the work of making sure that his holistic approach, looking at mental health, looking at physical health, looking at the economy and access to capital, criminal justice reform, Part 2, as well as the executive order that he put out when it comes to safe communities and safe policing, are all fulfilled and properly executed, working in concert with the local community, of course, because we know that local governments really are the ones on the ground that really can make the most impact and the most change. That's why I always go back to the issue of the major cities and who they're under control by. And many in the instances, when you look at it, it's the Democrat control. And that's, in my opinion, part of the problem.
Paris, and we also see, it's one thing as a parent, right? You tell your child, the worst thing you could tell your child is to do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah.
Black America as a whole has heard the president refer to the situation in Charlottesville, Virginia, a couple of years ago with the white supremacists. Basically, he got behind them. He refused to condemn them. Well, then we hear, wait, Paris. Then we hear the demonstrations in the George Floyd situation, and we hear the president use words like thugs, looters, hoodlums, things that are associated mostly by racist people to African Americans. How do they reconcile that when the president has made a 4 years of lambasting communities of color, not just African Americans? I mean, we haven't even touched on the situation where kids are in cages, right? Kids of brown kids, put it that way, for the most part.
Let's
But
Stacey, let me help you out a little bit. Let's start back with the last point, the brown kids in cages. That the notion that President Trump was responsible for putting kids in cages is one falsehood that has been perpetuated by the mainstream.
That's his policy, right?
That has been perpetuated by the mainstream media. What we know is that President Obama and the Obama administration was the first to order cages and have, if you want to call them cages, but for the lack of a better phrase, cages, and put children and families in cages on the Mexico border. That started under the Obama administration. The photos that many people saw with people wrapped in foil, that type of material, those were from the Obama years under Janet Napolitano. That is a fact. When you look,
do you think it's wrong, Paris? I'm sorry, we're not going to cut each other off. I apologize, but do you think it's wrong for children to be in cages?
I don't know of a way for the officers that are protecting our border to have a system of organizing and keeping people having separate quarters. If there's a better way of having areas for them to utilize that, then yes, let's do that. I don't think that the policy was something that should have been implemented. I think the administration, Mrs. Trump, has spoken out very aggressively on it. The administration, President Trump, amended the policy on that, but it was something that was started under the Obama administration. And I don't know if it was the best use of taxpayer resources to do it in that manner, in that way. But what I won't allow us to do is to take something that President Obama literally did and act as if and institute it and act like President Trump created it, started it, and did it. I think it's important for us just to be accurate and be fair. But President Trump and the Trump administration did change the policy on the separation of children and how that was handled. The other issue that you brought up was the issue of President Trump utilizing the word thug. I never heard him say hoodlum, but he did use the word thug, just as President Obama used the word thug to describe. Both were described. And let's put this in context so the audience can remember it, because we have short-term memories. We all do. So when President Obama used the term thug, he was referring to the looters, the rioters that were going in and destroying the Black small businesses in Baltimore after Freddie Gray. He called them thugs. President Trump, when he referred to the looters and the rioters and those Antifa type people that were going in again and destroying the Black community and destroying Black small businesses, he was referring to them as thugs. And I think that both presidents understood whom they were directing that term to: the people who were destroying the Black community, not the protesters, whom President Trump said had a right to protest, supported their protest, and said there were good people out there protesting about the murder of George Floyd. And so I think yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Paris. We hear constantly, and it's unmistakable. And I don't know that this is a criticism as much as it is just a fact. President Trump probably utters the name President Obama more than President Obama himself. He blames President Obama for breathing. And obviously that's hyperbole. But
yeah, thanks for clearing that.
What's the fascination that the president has with referencing Obama? Everybody has their flaws. We'd be silly to sit here and say President Obama didn't have his flaws. But what is the fascination?
Please list them, Stacey. Please list them for us. I think.
Oh, you only gave us a half hour. If we wanted to go into both of them,
it would take more time to list this.
For both of them, yeah. To be honest, yeah. Because Black people for the most part, Paris, we are still in the same boat we were even 12 years ago, let alone 8 years ago, let alone even 16 years ago, for the most part, because as we said at the top, the wealth gap is widening. It's not getting any closer. You see the George Floyd protests, and that protest is not just because of George Floyd. I mean, it goes back forever. It goes back on other administrations as well. So nothing has improved, right? Under this administration, and not much improved under the prior administration. I agree.
Yeah, I will just say this. If we can just stay on the George Floyd issue, the president's approach to this, I think it's a more responsive approach, because it's not just dealing with the issue of use of force with police, or the chokehold, or the knee on the neck. And I think that if we just narrowed it down to that, we would be missing the moment. And that's why I think it's important for us to examine the fact that he talks about access to capital. He talks about education. He talks about mental health and social services. And all of these things are giving through the executive order, a more holistic approach to how we solve a lot of these complex issues that are going on in our community and have been for a while. This is why I was perplexed as to why the Senate Democrats chose to do the course of action that they did yesterday with Senator Tim Scott's Justice Act. The Justice Act, as you know, is a holistic approach to setting up commissions for, to help Black boys, especially. It has provision in there to anti-lynching legislation, which is something the president supported outside of the Justice Act, and it on its own, anti-lynching legislation that Senator Tim Scott brought up. There's many things in there that I think that go after more than just the issue of use of force and aggressive policing, because that's something that we have to address. It's something that's important. Looking at their past records, getting their records, body cams, and having the resources to do all those things that are in the Justice Act. But we have to look at this holistically, Stacey. You're absolutely right. It is not just the fact that people are out there protesting because George Floyd died. They're out there protesting because they feel the system has failed them. They feel the educational system is poor. They don't have the jobs that they want. They feel that people aren't listening or not hearing them. And that is something that we have to respond to and make sure that our small businesses, especially, are helped and have the resources that they need. And I just real quickly want to go back to Charlottesville, because President Trump did and has and continues to denounce racism, bigotry, and violence and hatred by all those organizations like Antifa, the KKK, skinheads, and all of the neo-Nazis. He's done it. And I think that the Charlottesville issue, there's some information out there that is inaccurate as to what he was talking about, but that we can save that for another conversation. We really have to do all that we can and work together and not be so divided to find ways to improve the lot of our community. That's why I'm so blessed to have great relationships with you, quite frankly, with Norman Rich, with Dr. Chavis, and many like the Carolinian. I work with them frequently down in North Carolina. It's a Black newspaper, and many others, because we understand that together we can get these problems, plural, solved for our community by excluding the voices of Kay Coles James from our publications. I'm not saying that's what we do. Other publications do that because she's a conservative. No. Kay Coles James is a strong, powerful Black woman, head of a major think tank from an HBCU, came from poverty, has served in multiple administrations. Let's bring her to the table with others like she's done and find solutions and be solutionists, because our community, we know the adage, when white America gets a cold, Black America gets the flu. So what happened with under COVID-19, and you personally, I'm glad you're doing so strong.
Well, I appreciate that, Paris, and I appreciate the commentary. I have to, before we let you go, we
Yeah.
have to allow some comments from the viewers.
No, you don't.
Gary Foster says, is the president doing anything wrong?
I mean, yes, because he's human. I mean, where nobody is perfect. There was only one perfect person, that was Jesus, and now Sean King's trying to tear down statues of him. I think ultimately the president he's a human, and at any administration, mistakes are made and things could be done better. Those are just the facts. But what I do know is that this president listens, just like with Juneteenth. On the rally, we can just that's one example, a relevant example. The president was hearing from the community, hearing from people that he cares about and cares for our community. And he said, look, I don't want to have Juneteenth weaponized. It's an important holiday. It's an important observance to the Black community. It's an important part of the Republican Party history. It's an important part of American history. Let's move my rally to the 20th and not have it as a distraction because of the commentary going on in the mainstream media on the 19th. He listened, he understood, and he changed. And I think that that's important for any leader to be able to do.
Yeah, and just a short commentary from me is that, I'm asking you a lot about the president, and some instances that might not be fair to you, but who it would be fair to, the president himself. And we have extended multiple invitations for the president to come on and speak directly to the Black press. Bobby Henry, one of our publishers.
And I have advocated for that. There are many people at the RNC, the campaign at the White House, who are trying to make something like that occur, because we do value the Black press.
Well, we see him on Fox News every other day. We're here. He has a standing invitation. But Bobby Henry brings something up that I think, Paris, is on the minds of many. And I know we got to let you go, but sure. He mentions who said, get those sons of bitches off the field, right? And obviously he's talking about when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling and others kneeling during the national anthem, and the president was and still remains against kneeling. But in light of what has happened, we now see police officers understanding why Colin Kaepernick kneeled. We see the NFL and the NBA. We had Mark Cuban on recently on this program. Right. They are all understanding why Colin Kaepernick kneeled. Why doesn't the president understand why Colin Kaepernick kneeled?
Who asked that question? Was it Gary?
That's Bobby Henry, one of our publishers down in Florida, West Side Gazette.
West Side Gazette. But well, we got to do some work with you because we'll be in Florida for our convention. But let me, Bobby, specifically, the president does understand why Colin Kaepernick kneeled. The president does understand why people in our community, and quite frankly, let's not be so narrow-minded. It's not just the Black community out there insulted and so outraged by what we saw with George Floyd and others like Ahmaud Arbery. It is many people from all walks of life. He understands that. What he doesn't agree with is the method, in terms of the method of the protest. He does not believe that kneeling at the national anthem or when you see the flag is respectful to the men and women who served and died for that flag. And so the president believes that, and I actually agree with him as well, because my grandfather, who was my hero, my papa, Deacon Walter John Richard Dennard Sr., was someone who fought in the war. And I just believe that it is a disrespectful act to do that to the flag, while still understanding that you have a right to protest. You have a right to be upset about instances of police brutality or use of force. But there's other ways I think you can do and exercise your protest without being disrespectful to millions of Americans.
Well, Paris, protests, and from what I understand, with Colin Kaepernick and with others, the national anthem presented a time in which they believe that the message can be heard. And Colin Kaepernick has said this had nothing to do with the Star Spangled Banner or the flag or the military. So that message has been sent loud and clear, not just to the president, not just to America, but across the world, that this is not about protesting the military, the flag itself, or the anthem.
Then
Why is it?
Yeah, then he could just take a knee throughout the whole entire game. Then don't do it during the national anthem, doing the flag. I mean, if it's not about the flag, then don't do it doing the national anthem or doing the flag.
Paris, you know, you're always a good sport. Really appreciate you. We're gonna have to let you go. We have to respect your schedule. But
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping in. Come again, please do. We'd love to continue this conversation.
Absolutely. And let me just close by saying this. Thank you. The Black press is important. The Black press is more important now than ever. I have enjoyed, in my new role at the Republican National Committee under the leadership of Ronna McDaniel, the opportunity to engage with many in the Black press, many publishers all across the country. And I'm getting interviews. They're running stories. They want to be fair. They want to be balanced. That is something that I don't see, quite honestly, in the mainstream media. I appreciate the Black press. I think you have always had a special role with our nation. You can go back to many points in history when it was the Black press who helped prick the conscience of the nation, whether it was Jet Magazine running the images of Emmett Till, to what you all have been doing right now through this forum and others, as relates to George Floyd. The Black press matters. And I have been an advocate for the Black press within the Republican Party, within the Trump campaign, and within the White House. And I want you to know 100%, we hear you, we understand, we get it, and we want to be more, even more accessible to you. And I just appreciate the fact that you all give us these platforms to be a part of the conversation, not in a hostile way, not in a negative way, but in a responsive, responsible way, which is what I know the Black press to always be. It's about excellence, it's about class, and I appreciate it. I hope to come back soon and have others on this.
Well, Paris, you know, it is the Black press's role,
yes,
to present other views, to present all views.
Yeah.
We truly have to live by the creed of our forefathers, and we have to tell both sides of the story, or allow both sides of the story to be heard. So again, the invitation to the president, to the vice president, to Betsy DeVos, to the administration is wide open, has been for 4 years, and we will continue to keep it open for as long as you guys are in office. Thanks a whole lot, Paris Dennard, and thank everybody for watching. Stay safe and stay well. We will see you tomorrow. We'll have NAACP President Derek Johnson at 10:30 a.m. And then tomorrow night, another one of our special presentations, we will have the great Sugar Ray Leonard join us for a great interview. There you go. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.